Botany, and welcome back to another plant slideshow. So these informational slideshows on plants are just going to kind of go parallel to when we plant them in class. So these aren't meant to be something that you spend a whole lot of time on. You don't have to memorize all the facts or how many varieties of each of these plants are. It's just a little bit of information to give you a kind of a deeper understanding for the plants that we are working with in class. So, and as you'll see on the quiz on Thursday, this is not a large focus of any of our quizzes. So you just want to kind of understand what the plant is, where it comes from, and maybe a little bit about the propagation. All right, so let's talk briefly about this. And with each of these presentations going forward, there's going to be a quick Google form just to go along with it. Because I am no longer using Edpuzzle, I just want to verify that you're watching these and that you're getting essentially the key information out of them, and that will be essentially what is asked in those questions. Okay, so let's talk about aloe vera, what we are propagating in class this week. So aloe, or Aloe africana, African aloe, is a genus containing over 500 species of flowering succulent plants. So they are succulent plants, meaning that they have that waxy cuticle that allows them to hold water. And they are flowering plants, so they are angiosperms. And we've talked about that this week, as well as last week with our structural flower diagram. So if we classify them, they are in the kingdom Plantae, so they're a plant. Angiosperms, they are monocots. We're going to talk more about monocots versus dicots going forward. Order, Aspergales. Family, that is a long word. Xanthoroaceae. Subfamily, Asphataloidea, and genus Aloe. So don't expect you to know really any of these except the genus Aloe. I would like you to know that, as well as know that it's an angiosperm. It's a flowering plant because it has a flowering structure, which will be, quite obvious throughout this presentation. So the natural range of aloe vera and the aloe genus is going to be in Central to Southern Africa, as well as Madagascar, and then largely the Middle East. The Middle East, the Arabian Peninsula, is actually the origin of the aloe genus. But a few species of aloe have naturalized and been found in other regions like the Mediterranean, so around in Southern Europe, Italy, Greece region, Australia. They can also be found now. North and South America, like I believe in the Sonoran Desert of Arizona, they can also be found. And then the Hawaiian Islands, they can sometimes also be found. But their natural range is Middle East and Central to Southern Africa. Plant care. So as we're going to learn about in that planting demo, if you're a virtual student, or in the live planting experience, if you are a hybrid student, you're going to want to allow the soil of our aloe to get fairly dry between waterings. That will allow the roots to not rot and the plant to grow properly. It is a desert, an arid adapted plant. So it does just fine in dry conditions, and that is what it likes. So we want to provide as much light as possible. That's why you'll notice many of our succulents and much of our aloe and agave is positioned in the really warm, kind of maximum light portion of our greenhouse, furthest away from the classroom. And we want to use well-drained, sandy potting soil. So right now we have our kind of traditional potting soil, and we'll see how that works. But ideally, if you could work some sand in there, that would be ideal. And here is kind of that waxy cuticle that you would see, and that is where we get our aloe vera sunburn treatment from. So they store water in their enlarged fleshy stems. As you can see, all this kind of cuticle, really liquidy material in there. And they store it in their stems, their roots. And this is a split leaf. And this allows them to survive in really dry environments because they can hold on to that water and integrate it within their structures, so they don't need to take a whole lot of it in on any given day. So the most widely known species is aloe vera, or true aloe. So the suffix vera, or think of like la verdad in Spanish, is truth, or veracity in English means true. So that's all kind of the same root word, Vera. And it's cultivated as the standard source for many different pharmaceuticals, including sunburn topical applications that you use as a cream on your skin, medicinal uses. Scientific evidence for the cosmetic or therapeutic effectiveness is limited and frequently contradictory. However, there are regular claims that essentially aloe can soothe, moisturize, and heal, which, it's evidenced by what we see with our sunburn treatments. I got a really bad sunburn when I was in Costa Rica, not being well adapted to that equator direct sunlight. And luckily, one of my group members had aloe vera. So I was able to rub that on my really red shoulders. And after that, I did not wear tank tops. So I would recommend, if you have very fair, light skin, do not wear tank tops when you're near the equator. All right, so that's a nice little personal story. Aloe saved my butt there. Okay, so here's an example of aloe, and hybrid students will be seeing it in the greenhouse as well. Being honest, I might be watering this a little bit too much, but we will see. It is still doing just fine. So it can handle water. It's just you don't want to overwater it. As we're going to see in that planting demo, if you're a virtual student, or just in our own practice, if you're a hybrid, there are two main methods of propagating aloe. We're going to do the first one because it's quicker to do on the front end. It allows us to get it done quicker. So you can do leaf cuttings, but in order to do that, you can't just plop them right in the soil, because you need to cut that leaf and then let that wound heal for about a week or two. So that's why we are going to make that cut and then let it sit on top of dry, unwatered soil for a week. We don't want that cut to get infected, and we don't want any root rot. So in order to do that, we don't want to put it in moist soil. It doesn't really need moist soil anyways, but we certainly don't want to put it in moist soil right after we cut it. So we got to let the leaf dry. Then we'll use some rooting hormone. I just bought a bunch of extra rooting hormone, and we'll dip it in rooting hormone and then put it in some kind of minimally moist soil, fairly dry. And we want to wait until that soil dries out completely before we water again. So this is quick to do, takes longer to grow the roots, and it's a lower success rate, but we're going to try it. We are scientists. Let's give it a try. And we would be able to tell that the plant has died if it gets, kind of a red leaf or a brown leaf. But if it stays nice and green, we are good to go. So let's hope the majority of ours do. You could also use root offsets, and I'll show you a picture of these on the upcoming slides, where you dig up a part of the root and you separate some leaves, and then you plant the roots and the leaves together, which, because the roots are already established and the leaf has not been cut, this is a much more successful way to do it. But essentially it would take longer to dig everything up, and then we'd all be digging in the same soil and maybe damaging the whole plant if we do something wrong. So longer to do in the short term, but quicker to grow and higher success rate in the long term. So that's something we could try in the future if this way doesn't work. Offsets. So if we were to take a look, we would just kind of break off an offset from our stem, essentially. If these three kind of outgrowths or kind of rosette structures were attached, we could break them apart and then make sure that we isolate the roots for each of them, and then replant these smaller sections in soil. But we're going to go ahead and make a cut of a single leaf. Then we got to let it dry out and do a couple more steps because of that. So there are many other kind of different species of aloe. You'll notice they all start with aloe. They're all the genus Aloe. So these would be the flowering structures of aloe. And if you see, if you're a hybrid student, at the back of the classroom, close to my office door, there is a large kind of stalk flowering structure, as well as in the greenhouse hanging up. There's many stalk flowering structures of aloe vera. Aloe sucatrina, another type. Aloe aristata, another type. Many different types. So I'll just toggle through so you can see these look pretty awesome. This one looks like a miniature tree. Pretty cool stuff. French aloe, so it can grow in different areas. It can be naturalized in Europe as well. Soap aloe, hardy aloe. This one I think is found in Europe, so more cool climate there, so harder to survive. Aloe dichotoma, I think that might be in Australia, so it's been pretty well traveled. And if we start to see this kind of reddish brownish, I think it's natural for this species, but if we see that among our aloe, that means our leaf is probably dying and maybe it got root rot. Dune aloe, many different kinds of aloe. The end. All right, everybody. So what I want you to take away from this is essentially the questions that will be asked on that Google form. How do we propagate it? Where does it come from? What is the genus? All right, everybody. Thanks and have a great day.